Hello, this is Dr. Lore. This is my YouTube channel, and this evening I'm going to be interviewing Parker J. Cole about her writing. This is for a class that I'm doing. It's an oral history project for a class called American Entrepreneurship Since 1900. Okay, so I've got a series of questions prepared, and I'll be asking Parker these questions, and we'll see how it goes. So first of all, Parker, what inspired you to start writing novels, and how did you choose your first story?
Well, I have to say, unlike a lot of people, I always knew I wanted to be a writer. So, for anyone out there who is looking for entrepreneurship and you want to discover what that is, find out what it is you would do for free. Because there's not a lot of things you'll do for free. And writing is something I did for free. But I knew I always wanted to be a writer, but I did not start taking myself seriously until 2010 when I was fired from my job. I had a story on an ancient artifact called Five and a Half Floppy Disk. And on this story was my very first novel that I eventually published a year later. So that's when I started writing. But I was very blessed to always know I always knew I would be a writer.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you started around the same time I did. I also started in 2010, but I started with just some short stories, and I didn't get around to starting my first novel until about 5 years later, and
Mhm.
didn't publish it until much later after that. Um, so can you share the journey of your first novel from idea to publication?
Well, it's going to be kind of controversial, the actual topic. Well, when I was in my teens, I met a young woman and she had got pregnant. And I remember being like, oh, okay, she's going to be pregnant. And then a few weeks later, she had an abortion. And when she had the abortion, because I grew up in a Christian home and I grew up in a very religious home, it really startled me because first she had a baby, then she didn't. And I was really taken by this idea. And so what happened over the course of 10 or 12 years as I was writing the story, um, I've wondered what would happen if the aborted children took revenge of their mothers for what happened. So that's where the germ of the idea came from. And over 10 years, took a long time to polish it because the ideas that I started off with are not the ideas I ended up with. Um, the writing, even now, I refuse to read it because it's my first novel. I refuse to read it now because I know I've changed as a writer since then. But it was something from the heart. And when I got fired from my job in 2010, um, I looked at that story and I said, I'm tired of seeing you on this computer, not doing anything. And that's the gist of my story, basically. So it's like a Christian horror story, if you will. So yeah.
Well, that kind of leads me into my next question because not only are you a writer, you are a Christian writer, and so my
Mhm.
next question was, how does your Christian faith influence the themes and messages in your novels?
I should clarify that there are two ways of looking at it, and it really is a matter of semantics, if you will. I'm a Christian who writes fiction. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Christian fiction author. I write from a Christian worldview. And I say that significantly because some people have definite ideas of what they think Christian fiction is, and those ideas do not mesh with my own. I do not believe Christian fiction is safe fiction, but I do believe you can be a Christian and write from a Christian worldview without expressly writing Christian fiction because Christian fiction does have certain parameters and boundaries that people use to define, okay, this is Christian fiction. And I just don't have that. Um, I believe Christian fiction should expose things. I think it should tackle really difficult ideas. However, there's nothing wrong with having the clean and wholesome or the faith based or the salvation message in Christian fiction. I'm not saying that, but over time, I have become what is a Christian who writes fiction. Um, and that's okay for me because like I said, sometimes Christian fiction can be very narrow and I don't want to be bounded by anyone's suggestion of what I think Christian fiction is.
I have to agree with you on that. I'm kind of the same way. And if you look at, there's a lot of like Christian writers who've written fiction that is not expressly Christian. Take C.S. Lewis's Silent Planet trilogy.
Hmm.
He's a Christian writer writing fiction for a general audience. There are
Hmm.
Christian truths in the story, but it's not the inherently Christian story per se. Same thing with Lord of the Rings with Tolkien.
Well, to be honest with you, Tolkien Tolkien was Catholic, and not just lay Catholic. He was super Catholic, you know. And I say that because I don't think this is probably more intro. This probably more deviates a little bit from the topic, but I don't think a Baptist or a Protestant could have written Lord of the Rings, because Catholics have always embraced the religious expression of art, and I think with Tolkien, he was able to use his Catholic faith as part of that. But just to be quite frank, we're just now like the Protestant faiths are just now catching up to like a lot of the Catholic authors. Look at Dean Koontz, for goodness sake. Dean Koontz is a horror writer. And over the last several years or so, he's been more and more open about his faith and talking about it more. There's other authors who've done the same thing too. So, having said that, though, that doesn't mean that we Protestants are just sitting back there writing, you know, Amish fiction, which is pretty funny. If you know me, that's pretty funny. So
I'm Baptist myself, and I aspire to be the American Tolkien. Don't know if I'll ever get that level of recognition, but that's
he's got some pretty big shoes
goal,
to fill. The thing is, but you know what, Steve? We shouldn't. I mean, Tolkien is dead. C.S. Lewis is dead. These should not, for the Christian arena, I don't know if this platform is for, but for the Christian arena, they shouldn't be the only ones we have to look up to. We shouldn't be looking up to authors 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. I mean, there's so many authors who are Christian who writes really great stuff. And why are we holding on to, we should hold on to these greats. We should also usher in new authors as well. And I think that's probably some of the narrow definition of it, because speculative fiction in general is the redheaded stepchild of Christian fiction.
Now, can you describe your writing process? Do you have like a set routine or specific techniques that you follow?
It's funny because I'm a pantser. And as a pantser, I write by the seat of my pants, meaning I write when the need hits me. However, over the years, I have become more disciplined in that. So I usually write between the hours of 8 p.m. and 2 o'clock a.m. every day, because that's when my brain is very active. That's when I have the opportunity to get those juices flowing. And because I tend to write historical romance, I do a lot of research beforehand, not necessarily to get the story, but to understand the world of the place I'm writing. For example, in one of my stories called The Once and Future Queen, I write a reimagining of the King Arthurian tale with Guinevere being a Nubian princess. So it's been like, I don't know, weeks researching for the story. But when I wrote the story, I wrote it without, you know, set goal in mind. I wrote by the seat of my pants.
Okay. I'm kind of the same way to a certain extent. I do a little bit of plotting out. Like I'll have like a little brief 2 or 3 sentence description of each of the chapters, you know, because I'll have like a set end goal that I want to get to. I have a beginning point, and then I have certain things that I want to happen along the way. And so I just kind of plot it out a little bit. But then as I move through it, you know, things always change and shift around.
I was going to say too, my good habit is to write every day. And people say, do you really write every day? Yes, I truly do write every day. Did I start off this journey writing every day? No. But the more you take yourself seriously, you start to realize that you don't wait for the muse to hit you. You put the muse in the seat when you're ready to put the muse in the seat. And my muse is between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. Another author I know, she writes between the hours of 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. Whatever the muse is, whenever your mind is more active and more your imagination, you make a determination to do that. And I say you have to start taking yourself seriously. Are you going to be a hobbyist author, or are you going to be an authorpreneur? That's something you have to decide for yourself.
Okay. And that kind of goes into one of my future questions, although we'll get there, because you mentioned entrepreneurship, and that's kind of what this whole class is about, that the interview is regarding. But so, and I think you kind of also answered my next question, which was, how do you balance creative inspiration with the discipline required to write consistently? And you kind of already answered that, because you said you write every day and there's a certain set time that you do it in. So the next one was, what steps do you take to ensure your novels are polished and ready for publication?
Well, I use editors, and it's kind of funny you say that, because I do use editors. I have about 2 editors I use, and then I also have beta readers. Over the years, I have very gratefully received great readers who are willing to beta read for me. So that's what I use. So I send it first to an editor, and then I send to my beta readers who pick stuff out, and then I get it polished, and then before I send it out. It's very important to have an editor that, and I say, unless your family member is really, really good at editing, don't use someone you know. Don't use a friend, don't use a family member. Get someone, pay someone who doesn't know you, who doesn't have any skin in the game to help you polish up your work. Because the more fair and rigorous critique you receive from your book, the more you'll learn about it. So that's why I suggest that.
Okay. What was the experience like publishing your first novel? And this is as an addendum to that question. Do you prefer traditional or self-publishing, and why?
Because I am a hybrid author, I also have traditional contracts as well as indie contracts. It's not necessarily which I prefer, it's what does each do for you personally. If you're a person who likes to self-regulate your time, do your own thing, then I would suggest the indie. If you like having the distribution that's available from a traditional publisher, as well as their assistance in your book, if you're willing to work on their schedule, then I would suggest doing traditional publisher. The days of massive advances, like 100,000 advances, those are not for small time authors such as myself or anything like that. Those are for the big names. That doesn't mean you don't have to give up your dream of being with a traditional publisher, because traditional publishers are still in the business because they do know the industry. They do understand what makes a good book. I've been blessed to work with a wonderful editor who helps me to get better at this thing called writing. Very excited about that. So it really depends on what you want to do. So when my first book was published, it was through Avanti Press, which I do not recommend. All they do is take your money and then do absolutely nothing for it. I paid about $3,000 for a package, and I've only sold maybe like 1 or 2 books through the Avanti Press. I do not recommend them at all. I think they prey on authors' dreams and authors' desires to be published. And they'll say, we'll publish a book, give us $4,000, give us $1,200, give us $800. It doesn't matter. If you have to pay to publish, you really shouldn't. Now, that's different from a publishing consulting firm, which helps you with the process. They do have a consulting fee. Those are 2 different things. Avanti Press, they'll go ahead and give you all this package, and they'll say you get 100% of your royalties and all this other kind of stuff. Well, yeah, you will, because you just coughed up $3,000. What do they want with your 50 cents? That you may get off of your royalties or something like that. So I do not recommend Vanity Presses, but my first book was with the Vanity Press. And I feel like I make all the mistakes so you don't have to.
Well, I actually got contacted by a couple. I've been contacted by a few of those. And they were like, oh, well, you get all this and this and this and this. And I was like, well, I get all that if I just go through Amazon, and then I don't have to pay anything. So why would I go with you?
Yeah. And the thing about it is once you start to understand their tactics, you also have to understand that some of these companies are not vanity presses who at least do the work. Some of these people are just milking you for the money. They're scammers. And so you have to be aware of that too, because some scammers will present themselves as a vanity press. And they know how to manipulate you. They know how to keep you on the phone. They know how to hit those heartstrings of yours, because they are willing to sit with you and have you talk about your book for an hour, because all they want to do is get you to pay the money for them to take from you. So vanity presses and scammers, and I'm sorry they go hand in hand when I'm saying this sentence, they are willing to listen to you. They'll listen to your story about that little robot on the edge of a town looking for a girlfriend. They'll listen to that story because they have an aim in mind. They have quotas to fill. They're trying to get your money, okay? So that's why I said, I don't recommend vanity presses, and then definitely be sure of the scammers. Scammers will tell you, oh, we have access to all these industry people, and they'll make you feel like it's real urgent. You got to get it now. We want to make sure you get it. We want to help you because no, I don't need your help. And they tend to go after certain authors. Let's say they may only have 1 book out, and that book's been sitting on, let's say, on Amazon for several years, hasn't moved or anything. They know how to use words to get you. So as an entrepreneur, what I want you to do is be sure to test everything that people are saying. Don't go with it just because it sounds good. Ask questions. Look it up on Best's Business Bureau. Look it up with Predators and Editors. Look it up to see what other companies are saying. Don't agree with just what the website is telling you. Ask questions. Where are you located? They say, well, we're incorporated in Delaware, let's say. That doesn't mean anything. They could be a company in India telling that they're incorporated in Delaware, and then asking for the address. Look it up on Google. And you look up on Google, and they, like this one I looked up, they deliberately had a picture where this tree blocked the name of the company. And I said, the company had an I in it or something. And I said, there's no I in this company name. And I could see past the tree. And then you look down on Google, they weren't even there. So the people want to take your money. And as authors who are really desperate to get their work out there, you have to be ever so careful. There are people who will steal your dreams just for a buck.
Makes sense. What marketing strategies have you found most effective in promoting your books?
Advertising. I've used Facebook for advertising. I've used virtual book tours for advertising, word of mouth. Also, if you don't have any money, and I understand people don't want to spend a lot of money, networking is great. Authors do not have to be in isolation anymore. It's no longer that little author in a small, dark room with one little light hanging overhead and typing on a typewriter. We are networking, especially in the romance community where my industry is. The authors tend to connect. If you're in sweet and wholesome, you connect. If you're in the steamy erotic, you connect. You're in the dark romance, you connect. Doesn't matter, but networking is everything. This business really depends on networking. That's one thing to think about. The other thing is that if you have the money to advertise, you don't have to spend a lot of money to advertise. If you can use $10 to make 20, if you want to plank through and figure out how to do it, why wouldn't you do it? I was listening to the advice of a big time erotica author who I read off and on, and she said she made $1 million in a year. And you're sitting there going, and she said, no, you don't understand. She told her husband, I made $1 million. And he's like, that's great. That's great. She's like, no, you don't get it. I made $1 million. And she said, why won't you take $10 and learn how to use it? How to work these ads, how to use Amazon ads. I've used Amazon ads too. But if you don't have the money, start networking with people who are in your industry. And sometimes you can cross promote people who aren't in your industry. For example, Steve writes speculative fiction. I write historical romance. I may get together and say, hey, Steve, would you mind putting my one romance out there? He may cringe and, pull the skin off, but he may actually do it. But I have no problem with it, doing his, promoting his stuff either. So you want to network as well.
Okay. And now, how do you engage with your readers to build a loyal audience?
Over time, you have to realize that you can build your tribe. So the point isn't trying to become a J.K. Rowling. The point is to build your tribe so that people can connect with you. One way to do that is to have what's called a reader magnet. A reader magnet is an offering of one of the sample of your work. It could be a short story, it could be a novella, something that you may offer for free, or you may offer with an incentive. Sign up for my newsletter and get this free book. Sign up for my YouTube channel and you can get access to BTS, scenes. Sign up for something. So the reader magnet is usually something that's not pretty long. It could be a novella or it could be a full novel. It's your decision. I will go with a novella because you're not investing so much time into it. If you have a series that you're promoting, let's say you have one series, you may want to use a novella that connects to your series, or that may be the prelude to your series, however you want to do that. So that's one way to gain your tribe. Another way to gain your tribe is to create buzz about who you are. Some of the ways you do that is by doing a YouTube channel. Some people use that and they slowly gain followers over time. Some people do a podcast. I have a podcast I've been doing now for 11 years. Other people may use a blog that is of interest to them. It doesn't necessarily have to be about their story. It could be about, flower arranging or what have you. Something that you're genuinely interested in, that interests you, and that you can be involved in. That's one thing. And then I also have a Facebook group where my readers can connect with me. So I have a website, and that website connects them to my readers group. My readers group is called Parker's Bodacious Readers. And I'm not very active in the group because I tend to be active when I have something for readers to read. But if you want to be more active, go ahead and do that. Make sure readers know who you are. So that's what you do. You're trying to build your tribe over the years. It may take some time. You may get a lot of people, you may get 3 people. The thing is to keep building your tribe. And the way you build your tribe is to let people know that you're serious about your writing. So it doesn't matter if you're writing 10 books in a year or just 1 book a year. The people who are along for the ride will be part of your tribe.
That makes sense. I've heard that before, that a lot of times if you've got a YouTube channel or you're active on social media and you're putting out content, that if you have followers that are interested in you, then they're more likely to buy your book, even if it's not necessarily something that they would ordinarily go out and buy.
I've recently started watching Critical Drinker. He is a movie critic. He critiques movies. I love his commentary, and I didn't know he was a writer until one day I was listening to one of his videos, and he said, "I'm talking all of this about movies. Hey, maybe you want to try my new book?" And I didn't even know he had a huge series out and everything. And but people were with him for the movie critiques, and then they'll say for the books,
Right.
So it doesn't have to be something related to you. Like I said, flower arranging, how to
Right.
be organized, doesn't matter. So you want people to connect with you, not necessarily your book. And this is very important because authors who are introverts, they want people to connect with the work and not themselves because they're very comfortable being behind the scenes. But you want people to connect with you. So you want to remember that too. So you don't have to do it every day. You don't have to do content every day, just on a regular schedule. If it's once a week, once a month, what have you.
Can you talk about any specific promotional campaigns that were particularly successful?
The one that was successful for me was when I actually started to gain traction in my career as a writer. It happened back in 2017, and I joined what is called an MAP, a multiple author project. It was the first one I did. It was called Silver Pines. And this Silver Pines was a fictional town based in Oregon. And it took place in 1899, right before the turn of the century. And what happened is that the women of the town lost their husbands, brothers, sons due to two natural disasters, an earthquake and a landslide. And so they had to rebuild the town again by sending for mail order grooms. Okay. So it was a unique twist on the tropish mail order bride series. And
Mm.
what happens that we sent the buzz out for almost, I would say, 8 months. We kept the buzz going about the book. People were getting really excited about it. We then created a Facebook group where the readers who were really invigorated by this idea were able to congregate and talk about it. And then once we had the covers, we did a cover reveal party, and we had all the authors take about 15 minutes, because we had about 9 people in this multiple author project, take about 10 minutes apiece and talk to people. Do games, share information, talk about our book without giving away spoilers. And then we set a release date for each book was released every 2 weeks. And so that kept the readers engaged. So that was one of the first times I understood the power of networking. And then when I actually started to make money, it literally changed the game. Because beforehand, I've been writing since then, but if I got a penny, I was happy. I said, well, a penny, paid author. Now I was making money that I could pay my mortgage. That was incredible. Again, that's my journey, my story. Your story may be different, it doesn't matter. Do what works best for you. But that was one of the more successful ones that I've had. And then when I started advertising with Facebook, I was able to reach new readers who were interested in the type of work that I did. So that's another successful promotional thing I've done.
How do you handle negative feedback or criticism of your work?
It's something that you have to grow with over time, because when you write, it's so personal. These stories are very personal to you. They're an expression of what you think about the world or this world that you're building. Doesn't matter. The first time I got negative feedback, I must have drank 2 liters of Mountain Dew and I ate the marshmallows. And I had another ancient artifact called a typewriter. And I remember pushing that out the way and getting rid of it. But over the years, you learn to get a tough skin. It is not going to be easy because, again, this is personal, but you learn to grow a thick skin. Some authors, rather, I know, they prefer not to even read the reviews because they don't want to put that negativity in their heads. Me, I'm a glutton for punishment. So I'll go ahead and read them. I've had lots of things said about my stuff because I made mistakes. I've had my mistakes pointed out to me. I had lots of things happen, but over the years, you kind of go, okay, that hurt, keep moving on. Or maybe that won't hurt. You go, okay. But if the critique is constructive, then you do want to take that critique and use it to help you get better. For example, when someone says, this person wrote a lot in passive voice, and let's say you don't know what passive voice is, that's actually quite helpful for you, because passive voice tends to water down your writing so it doesn't have that dynamic aspect to it as opposed to writing in active voice. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. It's a classic sign of show, don't tell. If people are saying they keep telling me what's happening, not showing me what's happening, that's constructive criticism that you can take back with you. And then you can take classes or courses or read about it. There's lots of craft books out there that you can help get better at your writing.
Okay. I know one of the one feedback I got on one of my stories was actually something that I was like, well, that's kind of what I was going for, you know. I had this one person that was critical of one of my fantasy novels and said that it was too straightforward because it follows the normal structure of the, you know, of the whatever. And what they didn't come out and say it, but they were talking about the hero's journey, and I was like, well, that's exactly what I was going for. So.
One of my critiques I got was someone called my book pretentious. Another person said they wanted to throat punch my characters. Another person said this person should be taken off of bookshelves and not read anymore. People call my writing amateur, immature, lots of things. But over the years, you just keep moving because they can say what they can say, but it can't stop you from writing. This is something that's truly in you. Nothing can stop you from writing. It goes back to what I said earlier in our talk. What is it that you would do for free? And writing is something I've done for free, and I would still do it even if I wasn't making money anymore. I mean, it helps to make money, though. It does have to make money. I'm not saying that. But even if I wasn't, I would still do it because I did it before I actually started making a lot of, you know, now I won't say a lot of money. I won't act like I'm rolling in dough or anything like that. But because I can pay my bills and things, that's something I'm thankful and grateful for.
What other advice would you give aspiring novelists who are just starting out?
I think what I would tell you is if it's your first book, you can edit a full page, but you cannot edit a blank one. So you have to keep writing. If you keep writing, you will finish a story. Do not worry about anyone else. So do not look at anyone else's success and say, man, I'm not like so and so. So and so doesn't have your journey, nor do you have their journey. You don't know what so and so had to do to get to where they're going, right? Do not let imposter syndrome take over you. Don't let feeling bad take over you. Because as aspiring novelists, we do look to people who are more successful than us as a benchmark, which is fine. But you don't want to look for them as they're the epitome of success. And the only way I'm going to succeed is if I mirror their success. No, your success is different than someone else's success. So you have to be aware of the fact, don't compare yourself with anyone else. The only person you're fighting against is yourself to get better at this thing called your writing every single day, which is why I encourage you to write every day, even if it's for 5 minutes. Like I've been on the toilet. I'm just being honest. I've been on the toilet with my phone and I'll put something on my phone and start writing. Or I'm in the shower and I'll have the dictation machine on. It doesn't matter how long you're writing because each word is victory.
I actually do the same thing. I work as a driver right now, and so when I'm making deliveries, driving around, I'll have my phone and I'll have the dictation and I'll just start talking, dictating stuff to it, you know.
And it gives you something to do when you dictate because now you got to take that dictation, either transfer it manually or through whatever software you use, put it on the dock. But guess what? You worked today. You wrote today. Thank God. You know, you got that done. Every word is a victory.
Now, how do you stay motivated, inspired to write new stories?
I think that has a lot to do with my personal view of writing, which has changed over the years. When I first started writing, I just wanted to write stories. Now, because writing has changed and there's a lot of censorship going on with writing and people trying to dictate the creative spark, I'm not going to let anyone dictate that creative spark for me. And so for me, my writing is set to explore romance through the vehicle, explore history through the vehicle of romance. And so because I like to write historical fiction, I'm exploring history through romance. So as I mentioned before, my earliest book is The Once and Future Queen with a Nubian Guinevere. And instead of having Guinevere be Welsh, she's Nubian. And I took aspects of Arthurian legend and made it just strictly historical romance. I kept author's name Arthur for sure. I changed Lancelot's name and some of the knights, and I made them Welsh warriors under Saxon rule. I did a lot of little things with the story. And so my goal is to just keep exploring history through the vehicle of romance. What is you're going to do? Do you want to write to educate people about a particular topic? Do you want to write about your world? Do you just want to just have fun writing? Whatever your message is, that is what's going to get you motivated. And mind you may not have a message. Maybe you just want to tell good stories. That's completely fine. And so that's how I stay motivated, because I want to continue to explore history. And history to me is the most speculative fiction of all, because it's grounded in reality, but there's so many things you can do with it.
Mm-hmm. Can you share any behind the scenes stories from your writing or publishing journey?
Behind the scenes stories? I remember when I first got an agent. My agent, her name is Vanessa Grasset of the Author's Care. And at the time, most agents do not take on new authors. And the reason why is because new authors are difficult to work with. But at the time, Vanessa was taking on new authors. And she wanted to read my second book I wrote, which is a contemporary Christian, edgy Christian fiction romance called Many Strange Women, written by one. And so what happened, when I reached out to her, I was terrified. I really wanted an agent. I knew it was rare for agency would take on new authors. But I remember when she asked for the manuscript, all of a sudden I had to finish it. I kind of, hugged my way through a little bit. So I had to finish it. So I was up at 4:00 in the morning, falling asleep on the screen, trying to finish the novel. And I sent it to her probably around 7:00 that morning. I fell asleep for like an hour, and I finished writing, sent it to her. And that's how she became my agent after that. She gave me some suggestions to make the book more palatable to sell. And then after about 40 rejections from various publishers, I finally got published with a small press called Alexio. They're no longer in business now, but they're my first publisher. And what was incredible was that my agent never once doubted that she would sell my manuscript. And it's having someone that believes in you, who constantly knows that your work is worth it. That was very instrumental for me to become where I am now. Me and her still work together, even though I'm a hybrid author. I still have traditional contracts. She still represents me, but our relationship has changed more so, where she more so manages the business side of my writing a little bit more than I do now. All those authors that she had, they all left for one reason. So I'm not her only author, but I'm the one that stuck through the longest. So there's the BTS stuff for you right there.
Well, it's kind of interesting, because that plays actually into my next question, which was, how do you manage the business side of being an author, like contracts, royalties, and rights management?
Yeah, so my agent takes care of that. But if I was by myself, I would take care of it myself. I would just reach out to someone. But because I got an agent pretty early on in my writing, because we started working together in 2012. I want to say 2012, something like that. So I was only 2 years by myself before I actually got an agent. So she takes care of a lot of royalties, researching, looking up contracts, stuff like that. I take care of like the advertising for my own books, and we sometimes collaborate on different things. We're more so like a partnership now. But that's what I do. Does everyone have that opportunity? No. A lot of the authors I speak to, they do their own stuff. They take care of their own taxes. They take care of their own advertising, their book schedules, all of that. It's just a matter of time management, and she's better at managing time than I am.
Okay. Final question. What are your future goals as a novelist, and are there any new projects you're particularly excited about?
Well, I am venturing into the world of screenwriting, and I recently entered a screenplay contest. I have no idea if I'm going to win. I am hoping to get some feedback, because the opportunity to do it came to me. And this was something I never thought I would do. I never thought I would even take a gander at writing a screenplay, but now I've been bitten by this bug, and I've seen other authors in the industry who I know. At least 3 of them have potential. One has a movie deal that's being produced now. One just received she just announced that she has her one series has been optioned by a big movie company. Another one is trying to sell her screenplay to Netflix. And there's another one who is currently being optioned for another one. But it wasn't because of it was because I was happy for their success. I did not think I would do it. And then all of a sudden I started doing it, working on it. And so I finally said, well, let me enter into this contest and we'll see what happens. So as my goals change, and don't be surprised if this happens for you, as you grow into your writing, it's going to change. It's just the way things are. As we grow older, we mature in this thing called life. And why wouldn't that happen with your writing? So as an entrepreneur, your business will change as your goals change, as you try and risk new things. Because writing a screenplay is strictly just dialogue. How do you convey a huge story through dialogue? I don't know. But this screenplay is only 15 pages. So only 15 pages. It's a short story. Hopefully it gets selected. I really hope it does. But even if it doesn't, I took the risk. I took a leap of faith and I went ahead and did it. If I fail, I'm the only one who knows about it. The failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a way for you to grow. You just learn, if I hit the wall, okay, don't go there again, So I'm looking forward to where this journey takes me.
Okay, well, it was good talking to you, Parker. And this concludes our interview. And for all the listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed it.
Have a good day. Bye.